Autumn Leaves was a profound experience.
Moral panic, witch hunts, and censorship spread like wildfire. This congregation, scientists, professors, artists, felt the need for a place where history and culture could be preserved, safe from those who would destroy it for its seditious content.
This review has been difficult to make, because honestly we like almost every aspect of this mod. In fact, we'd go as far as to say it might be the best mod to have ever been made. It's just that good. If you liked Fallout New Vegas for its RPG elements and thought of the gunplay as a secondary aspect, then this mod will be right up your alley. It adds a vault called Hypatia, which preserved a pre-war library in the vein of the Library of Alexandria. Upon entering the vault, you'll meet a bunch of robots that act as the stewards of the library, each with a ton of dialogue, allowing you to know them more intimately than any vanilla character in the game. However, you'll discover that the professor that created the library, the only human resident, didn't die naturally, but was murdered. And suddenly, this bookish experience becomes a murder mystery.
200 years have passed. Far enough time for something to go wrong. Today, the courier awakens the library from its long sleep.
Perhaps that summary sounded familiar? It might be because Bethesda seemed to like this mod. So much so that they allegedly plagiarized it when making Vault 118 in the Far Harbor DLC of Fallout 4. The only differences are that the murder victim was the Overseer, the robots are Robo-Brains, and the characters are so shallow that you can solve the mystery in under an hour. It's genuinely a sad shadow of the better work of Autumn Leaves, which executes upon the same idea with much more introspection, care, and love for storytelling and knowledge.
Oh, I can see your little gelatinous eyeballs darting around the room. I see you looking at all my stuff. That plant, mine. That painting, mine. That jukebox, wanna guess? Yours or mine? Time up, it's mine!
The characters make this mod, and their vocal performances are the stars of the show. James is the first Protectron you'll meet, and you can tell right away that, despite his friendliness, there's something morbidly wrong with his understanding of humanity, in an uncanny but sympathetic way. Meanwhile, Helena is the most introspective of the bunch, commenting on and questioning the player about the means of concepts like consciousness, souls, free will, and true artificial intelligence. Honestly, it's a shame that AI has become such a corporate buzzword these days, as it really cheapens the more interesting philosophical discussions that can be had around theoretical artificial sentience. Or how Autumn Leaves uses pre-programmed emotions as a metaphor for indoctrinated cultural values of one's psyche. And for what? So we can sell algorithms to gank people's art? Yay. I believe you're closer to humans than you think.
And this is wrong! The only emotions we are showing are fake. Lines of code, forcing us to talk with preset intonations so humans can relate to us. Even this distress of mine I wasn't aware of is a fate you're believing.
Roland is one of the funniest characters in all of Fallout modding, as he is a Protectron dedicated to making people miserable, but not in an abusive way. He's honestly just like old internet trolls, and his role is to ensure no one is too arrogant to be taken down a peg, to humble them. Edgard is the robotic equivalent of mentally damaged, and the depiction of Edgard is one of the most nuanced and sympathetic depictions of a mentally disabled character we have seen in a Fallout game. His self-esteem is so low that the player has to be careful to not upset him, as it will destroy him. This makes conversations with Edgard seem one-sided, like you can't really talk to him as an equal, and it's kind of uncomfortable. But that's also the point? The player has to be careful even if it isn't easy when engaging with him. And despite his inability to take criticism, the mod goes on to say there is a path for him to improve and get the help he needs. He just needs time, and it's sweet.
I was like going straight up to her while she was working, talking about very intense topics, and she would get totally absorbed in what I told her. She was like, yeah, I like you too, Edgar, all the time. She was pretty smitten, huh?
Arthur is another robot who speaks in riddles, never giving a straight answer to a question. And while this gimmick may be just amusing, it's fun to interpret his thoughts from the riddles. There is more to him underneath these riddles, but you'll have to explore to really understand this grievously flawed character. Meanwhile, the maintenance bot is a robot who's meant to be alien from the others, having lived a very different life that doesn't even try to imitate humanity. He has an interesting perspective that comes off as very antisocial but at the same time understanding. Like an alien who doesn't see themselves as above humanity, just separate from it, different. You suffered? I believe you didn't feel real emotions, apparently.
Don't take it wrong. When I say suffer, I meant the quality of his program suffered. He never had the occasion to adjust his environment.
But more broadly, the political message of this mod is focused on a singular issue: historical conservationism. Over and over, the question is posed: if knowledge is a precious resource like the library, at what point does letting people access it pose a risk for its destruction or misuse? Over the centuries, only 5 people are shown to have ever been able to use the library, which might have you question whether it'll ever be used. This is the same game that has the Brotherhood as a faction, a group that claims to confiscate tech for a later date, only that later date will never come. So the library feels like it is in a constant stasis. When will it open? Will it open? What is to become of this library?
What is the point of keeping a record on all these useless topics? This isn't a library. It's a graveyard for pointless knowledge. Give me a year, and I'll sort out the 100, no, say 50 books worth keeping, while we cremate the rest and make room for a new chapter.
Each of the guests had radically different perspectives of what should be done with the library, but there is a common through line between them. It is wrong to keep the library closed off from the world. Some talk of how the vault has resources that could shelter from the wasteland, but much more attention is paid to the characters who fear the knowledge contained within the books. A consequence of the library's exhaustivity is that there are many books on horrid subjects, sciences, and practices from before the war, information that would be lost without the library, ranging from how to build an atomic bomb to how to freaking lobotomize employees to make them more productive.
Technology, progress, enlightenment, and whatnot. The more I read from all those books, the more I see how petty and vain it was. What's even more depressing is the fact that our own civilization is trying its utmost to pick the old world's trail where it was, going straight ahead for the same wall it crashed in. They even got a book on how to lobotomize workers to make them more efficient, for sake.
And so, the purpose of the library, to conserve history and knowledge, is brought into question. Should we destroy the info hazards contained within it to protect humanity? Personally, we're not against the idea wholeheartedly because we don't think this knowledge has some intrinsic value. But that's a case-by-case question reserved for when specific knowledge poses a great threat that can be mitigated by its destruction. However, this just isn't the case most of the time. Often, Pandora's box has already been opened, and destroying the information just doesn't help. It's also shown that various characters who began destroying books in the library had biases that led them to destroy information that the robots and we ourselves don't think ought to be destroyed, which adds another wrinkle to the moral issue.
They should be allowed to start over, be free of the weight of the past. I feel myself declining. I just hope I have enough time left to finish what must be done. After that, I will let them go outside if they wish to. I'll deal with what's left here. Make this library decent at last.
There's only a few criticisms we can even think of. Roland's edgy humor dips into racism and ableism once each, there's that. Oh, and a lot of the books you can read are parodies of real books, like how the study on Ignatius Page, where a man survived a blast to the brain, was lampooning a similar situation that actually happened with a man named Phineas Gage. While references and allusions can be amusing in a silly way, we feel people might walk away from these stories that are close to, but not quite like actual real-world information, might legitimately misinform people. The mod references real books, and so it saddens us to think some people might not recognize the books that aren't real. And that type of misinfo just for a silly reference seems very much against the spirit of this mod. That being said, this is a small criticism that most people probably never noticed. Your attempt to relate this book to me as if I'd relinquish my revenge because of some epiphany.
You're wrong. I'm not expecting you to give up your revenge. I just want to know how you feel about a revenge that didn't go as originally planned.
By the end of the mod, you make a choice about what must be done with the library, where you can decide to keep it locked away, let it be selectively used, or let it be freely used. The mod lets you make these decisions, but there's a clear slant that the library is meant to be used, which we think is justified. The ending for that decision has drawbacks, as the library genuinely is worsened by such frequent use by the masses, but what is the point of the library if not to educate? What is the point of the entire ideology of historical conservationism if not so that that information can impregnate the minds of future generations? The mod's message is genuinely noble, tackling concepts like censorship, book burnings, and info hazards with far more understanding and nuance than you'll typically see from online fandoms. A safeguard from what?
From historical revisionism, among others. The victor rewrites history. We need to ensure that the record of past events doesn't get scrapped because of fluctuating political contingencies.
Even so, it's not a mixed message. There is a right answer. Libraries are public utilities to educate a people, and it's wrong to undermine that goal. It's wrong to limit education and condemn humanity to ignorance. When you finally meet the main antagonist, the murderer, they condemn human nature to prop up their own superiority complex, much like a lot of real people do when they talk of human nature. What other mod has you have a philosophical debate with an AI until it literally kills itself? None, and it's glorious.
Helena, I fear I've made a huge mistake with the toaster. I am very distressed at the moment. I think I'm going to... Helena, Ard. I'm beeping, Helena.
Oh my god. Did you stick an appendage in there, Roland? And so, we give Autumn Leaves a 10 out of 10. Genuinely a masterpiece.